Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out.
And you are?
Oh, yes. And I'm Robert Winters, and you should really beware the Ides of March.
That's right. And this is Judy Nathans.
Et tu, Brute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, nice day out today in Cambridge, Boston area.
Yeah.
And actually, I think maybe one thing worth mentioning off the top here is that this starting this Thursday, I believe, is spring training baseball games. So
right, they got back on schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to seem too simple in saying this, but honestly, just the sounds of baseball make me happy.
That's good. I like the sounds of basketballs. I like March Madness, which is happening right now. It's going.
That's true. Yeah. So, but anyway, so I'm happy to see that happening, and I guess they're not going to cancel any games. They're delaying the start of the season. It's pushed back about a week, but they're rescheduling everything, so we should still have.
One thing, Robert, I heard, and I didn't even know where you'd gone. Jackie Bradley Jr. is back. Where did he go?
Back with the Red Sox. Yeah.
But where was he?
You know, I forget actually what team he was with, but you know, I was actually, people were posting some of those spectacular catches of him, and you know, I love it. I love it. You know, and I'm glad to see him back, and I hope he hits well too. So
and so is Tom Brady, but for the other team, whatever.
You know, that's funny. The sentiments about Tom Brady, how they've washed back and forth. We love him. He's the greatest hero of all time.
Yeah,
now
we hate him.
We hate him. Who is this guy? Why is he manipulating us this way? You know,
sure helps the television ratings. I'll tell you that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So maybe it's not a good idea to stress too much on all the COVID stuff. You know, we sometimes speak about it a lot, but just say the numbers really are going down again. You know, 39 new.
They're going down here
in Cambridge and in the United States.
Not in other parts of the world. Yeah.
Hong Kong is definitely not doing so well right now. No. But you know, the numbers are heading in the right direction again. Whatever this BA2 variant. Blip we've had, we seem to be coming through it now. The masks, the masks are no longer required in public buildings, in regular, not city buildings, but just
private can
businesses.
Make their own rules. Yeah.
And most people are still wearing the masks anyway, and some places are probably still requiring it anyway because they can do that if they wish.
What about colleges? Are they still requiring? Private colleges, probably. Yeah.
They've relaxed that now, so you don't have to.
Really?
Yeah. And by and large, I mean, I think it's done college by college, you know, but I think Harvard, MIT, I know Harvard, I don't know about if MIT's relaxed just yet, but anyway, things are starting to look better. And, you know, normally when we head toward the warmer weather, we'll have a little bit of a decrease anyway. So, you know, everything's kind of working in harmony right now. So I think you know, nobody should drop their guard, but, you know, I think there are some reasons to be hopeful. So we'll see, you know, see how it plays out, you know. So again, there's not going to be any cardboard fans at Fenway this year. So,
oh my God, was that last year or the year before?
No, that was the year before. You know, you know, some of the
forgot about
the insect fear of 2 years ago. Yeah, we've already sort of started to forget some of how it was.
Well, there was no vaccine. We didn't know. People were dying like a lot. New York, everywhere. You know.
And people didn't actually understand enough about what you should or shouldn't be fearful of. So, you know, so there was a lot of overreaction, but it was completely understandable. But anyway, so
I'm glad we had an overreaction. Yeah,
definitely. I was actually, there was this, you know, they started reporting COVID infections and deaths and hospitalizations differently maybe a month or two ago. Based on what, you know, I mean, it was a presumption of COVID always first, but then they changed it, and it actually kind of cut in half the number of hospitalizations and serious illness that were COVID attributable. Well, they just decided, I mean, basically, if you went and broke a leg and then they tested you for COVID and turned out you had COVID, you were a COVID case. But in fact, the reason you went to the hospital is you broke your leg.
So you're talking about hospitalization versus death.
Right. So they changed that. And now when there are people who have died in hospital, you know, now they're redefining Yeah, so they've actually gone through a redefinition of what constitutes a
see.
COVID-related fatality. So for the state data, they were anticipating some percentage drop in the number of fatalities total cumulative based on this redefinition. The Cambridge number has not yet changed. It still stands at 142 fatalities since March of 2020.
And aren't they keeping track of vaccination versus unvaccinated people?
Yes, and Cambridge is actually quite good, and that's the reason why I think people should feel reasonably confident we're going in a good direction.
Yeah,
because we're not like Hong Kong, where there was only like 40% vaccination or something like that.
I'm surprised because they were doing so much testing and so much this and that, but I guess they were doing it by containment. We talked about this versus letting it kind of be out there.
The zero COVID type strategies are generally doomed to fail because you almost, the only way you get through some stuff is you have to permit a certain amount of exposure or vaccination, which is kind of a pseudo exposure.
Right.
And if you think you can just basically bolt the door and keep it away, it doesn't work, and you run the risk of one day it having come roaring through.
I'm just surprised. I thought China had their own vaccine and were
they do, but
people to get vaccinated. They can tell people to do it.
The Sinovac, I think it's called, is actually not considered as effective as like Pfizer and Moderna. And furthermore, if you're in a place like Hong Kong, you are distrustful of China. So there are that's part of the reason for the vaccine hesitancy in places like Hong Kong, is that they don't trust the government. And the government is saying you have to do it. Yeah.
But aren't they having infections rise in Shanghai and places that are
well, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of this, whether they are allowed to admit it or not, there's probably a fair amount of distrust of the government there as well.
I doubt. Yeah, but you get shot if you don't pay attention in the government. So I'm sure if they needed to get vaccinations, so something's different.
There's a good COVID strategy. We'll get you vaccinated at the point of a gun.
Well, that's what I thought they were doing.
Well, I don't know. So anyway, so that's that the never-ending COVID saga, but hopefully it'll be less of an issue as time goes on. Meanwhile, here in Cambridge, the city is still in search of a city manager, a city clerk, and a city auditor.
Yeah.
And there's not that much to report. I think I have it up on my website. They have updated basically the job description that went out for the solicitation for city manager applications. I have no idea how many people have applied for that, or how many will ultimately apply for the job.
And also, isn't it till March 30th that you can apply to be on the selection for the school?
Yeah, right. So, and I've toyed with whether I wanted to apply, but you didn't
do it?
No, I haven't done it. I mean, I might do it, but honestly,
still 2 weeks.
I'm not feeling all that confident in the sort of the pre-process. Ultimately,
but at least you could find out whether they want you or not.
I know, and feed my cynicism by applying. But so then they'll have to do the pre-screening and to whittle down the number of applicants to some manageable number. But honestly, the way they prescribed we need one person from this category, one person from that category, 3 from this category, whatever.
Oh, I didn't read the specifics. So
I just, it wasn't like completely stacking the deck in order to develop only a particular type of candidate, but it was starting to push toward it, So, I mean, if it was up to me, I say, can you manage a large organization?
Have you managed
50% of the pre-screening committee? But they try to make it everybody's little wish list of what they really want in a candidate. So that's not pre-screening. That's like screening at that point. You're not just testing for qualification at that point. You're sort of trying to stack the deck. So anyway, I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see. I'm trying to keep a good open mind. I haven't heard a word about. Well, I know they did a process out for getting a city clerk. 2 of the city councilors are kind of riding herd on that one, and not a word yet about city auditor. So I don't know where that's.
Oh, so it's Toner is on the one about the clerk. I thought he was the one about the auditor.
Yeah, I think it's Paul Toner and Denise Simmons, I believe, is the subcommittee for the
Okay.
clerk. So where that's going, I don't know. I did at the March 8th, I think it was, meeting of the Government Operations Committee, they did revise the schedule. So everything, well, not everything,
Oh,
but
right. Yeah.
all of the later parts of it have all been pushed back about 3 weeks. So
Okay.
the optimistic timeline that they originally had hasn't quite worked out. It's being stretched out a bit. But still, I believe they have it so that they'll have about 2 weeks
I know, not
between
much time.
selecting a candidate and Louis DePasquale leaving the job, which is honestly,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be down to 2 weeks. That's
Well,
ridiculous.
he might stay on for a couple of weeks. Who knows?
That my understanding is he doesn't wish to, but I'll
doesn't
leave that
wish to,
choice to
but,
Louis. Yeah. But remember, the way it works under state law and the city charter is that any assistant city manager can stand in with the approval of the city council as
Sure.
a acting city manager in the interim. And if it's happening, in July, where things are a little more slow than anyway, I don't think it would be all that pivotal. I think that you might actually get one of the other, department heads from either
Can I
human
ask you
services,
something?
public
Yeah.
works, whatever, to do.
Did they ever? They never replaced Lisa Peterson. She was the.
No, we don't have a deputy city manager position filled right now.
I wonder if they'll ever will.
I don't know, but I think if
She's
I
been gone a long time.
yeah, I think if I read it correctly in the sort of job description, one of the things they want the new city manager to do is to fill the position of the deputy city manager.
Oh, all right.
I don't know that that's necessarily has to be done or whatever. And so I find it a little weird that they would put that in the job description, because you're basically telling them how you're supposed to structure it. I don't know if that's necessary really, but yeah. Anyway, so that's ongoing, and round and round she goes. Where it comes out, nobody knows, and but it'll be interesting. I'm noticing some other things that are making it to the schedule now. They related to charter change, just today appeared, or maybe
just today.
First time I saw it was a calendar item for the ordinance committee to meet to talk about making, you do pass an ordinance. When they pass those charter change things, it was supposed to be set by ordinance how they were supposed to do certain things. So at some point, the ordinance committee would have to meet in order to actually make it so.
That was just scheduled today?
Yeah, so it's scheduled, not too far from now. I think it's actually it's in May.
Oh,
yeah.
That's kind of far from now.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just pop over there for a moment right now here. So at the very, very bottom there, the ordinance committee will meet to conduct a public hearing on the ordinance, blah, 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 charter change municipal code amendments.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of late in the day? Aren't they trying to?
Yes.
I mean, they're talking about appointments to boards and stuff, which has to be, isn't that part of it?
I don't want to be just sort of the eternal griper about all of this here.
I know.
But, the truth is that, you do have a city council supposed to meet every Monday, except they didn't do yesterday because they were National League of Cities.
Yeah.
But and then you have all these committees, and to listen to the city councilors, it makes it sound as though it's just so burdensome and difficult in order to schedule meetings and get everybody together. And I'm thinking to myself, you people are very well paid. If you can't put your first priority is to schedule and attend the committee meetings that you are obliged to go to, then if you can't do that, then you really should be seeking another job. The fact of the matter is they have not had very many committee meetings. They haven't scheduled that many committee meetings.
Some
There's
people
no
have.
Excuse for that.
Health and Environment's had a lot, and
they just put a couple new ones on now, actually, for Health and Environment.
Well, why don't they just schedule them ahead of time, and then they can always cancel it, right? They should just put it into the schedule.
Yeah, they've done that at
like
times.
Once a month. I don't know.
And they also, it seems like there's certain days, like God forbid you should actually meet on a Friday, right? You know,
Yeah.
the Government Operations Committee over the years used to routinely meet on Fridays because it was less conflict with other things. Now it
Yeah.
seems like council, well, we don't want to come in on Fridays. We like our
Well,
3-day weekends.
But wait a minute, they've also changed offices are closed at 12 on Fridays, so maybe that's part of it.
Well, the thing is, you can
Public
close City
offices.
Hall, right? But you can still have this
I
City Hall
know.
open for meetings.
I know,
they
but
used to
I'm
have-
just saying it sends a message to me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we don't
Yeah,
have to do anything else.
Anyway, it's not a lot of heavy lifting, the way I look at it. So there are some other things that are happening in addition to that. As we were mentioning, I think it was on our last program, we talked a little bit about that. The
Yeah.
neighborhood conservation district and all these board appointments that were made
Charter
subject
rated.
to the charter right.
Mhm.
So they came before the city council, you know, at the
On
next
March
regular
7th,
meeting on
right.
March 7th. And then
Mhm.
it turned out 2 of them were hastily made subject to the charter right, that the council doesn't even have any review role at all in
Right.
those appointments. So those were
Right.
said, okay, sorry,
Right.
pass those along, great. But then I think there were something like 7 other ones that
Yeah.
had board appointments. So,
Right.
you know, they kind of said, well, it's really not that consequential because after all, most of the people who are the appointees are reappointments. And under state law, where there's a holdover
They could still
provision.
serve.
You
Okay.
can continue to serve in that role
Mhm.
until a replacement is made.
Yeah.
And then they said, I think something like maybe 7 actual new appointments, right? And
Okay.
you know, so what if we kick that can down the road?
Which
Honestly,
they
I
did
think,
by putting it on the table, right?
yeah. So what they did is rather than actually do anything, they said, well, we don't know what we want to do now, so we're just going to put these on the table here, and then we'll figure it out someday. You know, and I thought,
well, because they don't have a structure yet, and that's what she had said last time. You know, and it's true. But now you're saying in May they're going to talk about charter changes with the new amendments, and I don't
right.
know.
So in other words, so all these board appointments are pretty
We'll
much just going to
stay out there in the wind.
So let's just kick them down, kick the can down the road for another few months, right?
Nobody's going to want to serve.
You know, that's actually an issue. I think right now, at some point, when they put out the call for seeking volunteers to serve on city boards, they should put a little disclaimer at the bottom and say, apply at your own risk. Because if you're going to get called in front of a city council hearing where because you come from the wrong neighborhood or you represent the wrong person that they didn't want there, what are they going to do? They're going to like tear you to shreds at a public meeting? Is that really where we're heading?
I don't think so. You think it's going to happen in public? I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to develop some kind of structure where it happens not in public, and then the decision they come to will be then discussed. I don't know. I just don't think.
Well, that becomes a rather interesting legal question, whether that's even
they have to develop
with
a way
open
to do
meeting
that.
law.
Then.
Right. I mean, it'd be one thing if you were hiring somebody, you know, and there was a delicate contract negotiation. So you decided you needed to meet in executive session because this would be confidential or whatever. Yeah. But, you know, to the notion that somehow appointments to people to serve on various boards, most of which are advisory only anyway.
Right. Right.
You know,
they don't have voting capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is not quite the same as sort of like hiring a school superintendent where we have to figure out our negotiation strategy in private, you know.
Well, honestly, some are just more controversial. I mean, look, the planning board and the board of zoning appeal are the ones that, and maybe the historical commission appear to be.
You know, part of me actually is more offended by the notion they would do it in private because then even if they would do it in public, because if you want to do it in public and you basically want to say, such and such a person was not suitable for the planning board for this, I want that counselor on record in a very public way, basically rejecting a perfectly qualified.
I agree with you. I didn't mean it that they meet off. I meant more, you can request information from a department who also look at these applications. It's not like it just goes to the city manager. I think people forget that. So couldn't you request information from the department to see who has applied to get some idea, and then maybe you make it public? That's all
I suppose you could do that, but at some point, if I was city solicitor, I'd say, well, then what the city council is then doing is saying, okay, we're just going to reject these ones here. Now show us all the applicants so we can tell you who would be the acceptable
Oh.
candidates. At that point, the city council has become the appointing authority.
Okay, again, I didn't see it going that far, but I can see where you're pointing. Yeah.
You know, we've reached this point of sort of ideological madness now.
Yeah.
There, I could very well see it going to that point and worse.
Okay, well.
So we'll see. I mean, it depends on whether there's 5 adults in the room.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know that there are.
Well, I think there's adults, whether they're reasonable or whether they're.
I speak metaphorically.
I know.
Right. So anyway, so that's you know, continuing. One other item that's of some you know, I guess controversy we've talked about, it's sort of all over the place, has to do with all the bike lane infrastructure and other things that are proposed up and around Porter Square. And you know, and you know, there was at the last council meeting, it was, unless I've missed it, I think it was last council meeting, they actually did a the city manager sought the approval, there was no precedent for this, of the city council for a delay in a timeline, which unfortunately was woven into the bicycle safety ordinance. Those timelines absolutely have no belonging in there, but they've passed it. It is part of the law. So then the question then is, when they couldn't meet it, then the manager could say, you know, should the managers to be able to say, well, we're not able to meet it, so but we'll get it to it next month. Well, so now apparently they feel that the city council then has to basically take a vote in order to say, well, we're okay with you delaying it, even if circumstances forced it. I find that weird.
I know, but doesn't he have to do that because of the ordinance? He has to come to the city council to ask for that?
I guess, but you know, if we got hit with a hurricane and the hurricane caused a delay, that we made something.
Yeah, but I think people see that as more of a, you know, man-made, whatever.
Well, but the point I would
whatever,
make is simply is that these are not the kinds of managerial decisions that you know, forced by necessity, that should necessarily be require city council votes. And,
well, I agree with that, and that's why, you know, technically you have a city manager, but apparently not.
Well, I mean, there seems to be some rather profound misunderstandings of the roles of city councilor and city manager, and I think perhaps no better illustration of this can I think of than what happened at sort of a late order at the March 7th committee meeting. Okay, so
remind me again, what was that? That was
okay. So what happened a couple months ago, the city councilors basically said, look, Mr. Manager, we think you ought to be revising the the policy for people to be allowed to work from home, do remote working, right? You know, and the manager goes, okay, sure, that makes sense. Let's talk about this here. But the manager and regular city staff and department heads have some concerns about things like accountability. You know, in other words, we don't really have a long track record to sort of say whether it would work in any reasonable way to basically allow many people to phone it in, basically. You know, you don't have supervisory people around at home. You don't know whether it's somebody's actually working from home. How do you actually do that? So it takes a little time to work it out. Well, there was a late order pretty much calling out the manager going, Mr. Manager, why haven't you done something about this already here in how you manage your staff? And this moment the words were coming out of Councillor Mallon's mouth, I was saying to myself, hold on a minute. You are now directly instructing the manager how to interact with and make arrangements with the employees of the city manager. That is, you just ran right past the limitations of the charter by doing that. You know, now on the other hand, it was put in the form of an order. So an order is really still would require 5 votes as opposed to an individual basically leaning on it. But it was made quite clear that at least 2 city councilors are basically working on behalf of city employees as go-betweens to the manager. And I thought, wait a minute, is the role of a city councilor properly to be acting as essentially as an advocate for particular people who want to have a particular benefit?
Shouldn't they be going to like human resources or whatever the equivalent is, personnel department?
So the city manager should simply say, this is the policy we think you should carry out, Mr. Manager, right? And leave it at that. But when it gets to the point where there's clearly you've got city employees are basically
They're going to the
ringing up
councilors.
city councilors and saying, this is, basically, we need you to negotiate this for us. And I thought, hold on, that's absolutely not consistent with the city charter. So but anyway, so that came up, and I just heard that, and I have to say, one thing that was interesting about it is that when that was put to a vote, I think it had 5 votes in favor of sort of pushing it. But our newest councillor, Baran Azim, basically says, I don't think this is our role as city councillors.
Good for
and
him.
When I heard him doing that, I was like, nice going, councillor. Very
Who else
good.
was it? So it was Toner, Azim, Carlone?
So I think Denise Simmons was absent. I believe Dennis Carlone understood this was not the province of the city council, so he voted present. Paul Toner voted no, so he clearly understands the charter. And Burhan Azim, the newest kid on the block, the 2 newest councillors seem to understand the charter more clearly than all the others.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting comment, so.
So the order was, who was the sponsor? It was Malin and was it Siddiqui?
Siddiqui, I believe. There may have been others. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I mean, it's interesting. Siddiqui has at least 6 people that work in the mayor's office, so who knows?
There's always this, there's always this tension, and has always been a tension between the sort of quasi-executive role of a mayor.
I know.
Versus a manager, and there's always like a tension about that too,
Well, the minute, the staff has increased in the mayor's office over the years. So,
well, actually it fluctuates. I don't know how many people work out of the mayor's office. There were sometimes. It was
6.
Yeah, I know there were times maybe when Ken Reeves was mayor, it was kind of large, but it's kind of up and down.
Other people too. It's other people.
David Marr, I believe David Marr as mayor kept a very, very trim staff though.
Well.
Anyway, we're down to the last few seconds.
Okay.
So we'll be back
in the next
seconds on Cambridge Inside Out.